Hello, Namaste, and welcome to Agile Exploration Hub. And we are bringing another episode of Talks with Deshpandeji. So it's a very interesting time now in Pune. Ganpati is coming, and it's raining from last 2 3 days. And then I thought of bringing one special guest. So always, all my episodes are special guests because, um, honestly speaking, throughout my journey, the episodes that I'm shooting with people are I learned something from them, um, whichever way. I got trained from them. I either met them in a conference. I spoke with them. If I have a query, I WhatsApp them, and then I got the response, and I use those into my day-to-day work. One such guest I'm really proud to host today is Vishal Prasad. So Vishal is a founder of EnterpriseJoy, is an upcoming domain in organizational excellence. He has been in this industry more than 15 years now. During this time, he's gained loads of experience in agile way of working. And he's very much active in the community. He's been to many conferences, speaker. He's a wonderful trainer, coach, a friend. And what I like about his topics are, even though looks very small from the outside, those the details that he put into those topics. So I will request you go through YouTube and find some of the conference talks, and you will find it. So let's welcome Vishal. Hi
Thank you,
Vishal,
Deshpandeji.
how are you doing, sir?
I am very good and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure, sir. It's a pleasure. So how was the weekend?
Weekend was hectic given that new things are coming up. So yeah, startup takes a lot of your energy and time. So yeah, I'm
Absolutely.
happy that things are going smoothly. So hopefully something good comes out of it.
Awesome. All the best for your startup, and then
Thank you so much.
I hope to see you in person soon.
Yes, yes,
So
absolutely.
yeah, so something the topic that we have picked up, both of us has very, you know, history to it, something near to our heart is quality assurance.
Yes.
So our topic is agile and quality assurance, ensuring the excellence. So I remember when I first met Vishal, I was more into quality assurance person. I was technically working on testing projects, and I'm moving my career from testing to agile, and that's where some of uh, uh, the coaching tips that Vishal gave me really helped me to build upon those, and then find my way into agile way of working. So thanks to Vishal, and let's deep
You're
dive
most
into today's
welcome.
topic.
Yes.
So what are we going to discuss, Vishal, today?
We are going to discuss, or rather, we are going to go into depth of what quality assurance is and should be.
Okay.
And yeah, I think it'll be nice if we take a few examples, what both of us have seen in the industry, how teams do certain things, what teams do not do at times. And also, in general, let's go a bit deeper about where quality assurance, uh, well, I can't say originates from, but the basic idea of how lean and quality assurance work together. And yeah, let's see where it goes. No specific goal in mind, but hopefully it'll be a nice
Yeah,
conversation.
something. Yeah, definitely. So to my audience, if you're listening to us this video, hit the like button, subscribe. And I'm 100% sure you will gain a lot of knowledge out of this. So first thing, you know, I always get this question, by lot specifically of quality assurance people, that quality assurance or testers always get overlooked in agile, because they say that even if you are working in testing or agile, even if you are working in agile, testing always comes at the end of the sprint, towards the end of the sprint. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how you will, what's your 2 cents on this?
Yeah, I don't think uh, it's the right way to say that testing comes right towards the end.
Agree. Yes.
If we do look at the STLC model or the waterfall model, whatever way we want to see it, yes, it feels like the testing phase is like the end phase. And that's how a lot of the teams do it as well. So we wait for the things to be developed, we wait for the requirements, we wait for the design, we wait for the code. Ultimately, something comes to the team that is supposed to take care of quality assurance. They are the ones who test it. And then if everything looks fine, it goes into production or goes to people. Yeah, that's how it looks in the diagram. I do not believe that quality assurance as such is limited to a few people.
Agree.
Right?
Absolutely.
If I have to assure quality, regardless of where I am in this workflow, I need to ensure that it is being done to the best.
It's built in.
So yeah, it's more of the actions we perform. Now we say that it's a mindset, right? So we say that quality is a mindset, agile is a mindset, everything. When it comes to mindset, we need to realize that a mindset without actions is wishful thinking. Right? So if we say that, let's say we want a healthy mindset, we want to be health conscious, we can't have a mindset but not exercise. We can't have a mindset but not eat healthy. So if you have a healthy mindset or a health conscious mindset, you would exercise, you would eat healthy, you would take care of yourself, you'll sleep on time, you'll keep your weight under check, whatever it is. That is what mindset means. There are some actions that you're performing. Right. Similarly, if you have an agile mindset, if you have a quality assurance or high quality mindset, that means that you need to perform some actions to be there. And that cannot be limited to a few. It has to be ingrained into every step of the process. So even if the testers feel, and it's a perfectly acceptable feeling that everything comes to us or on our shoulders towards the end of the process, not really, it shouldn't be. Every single person is involved in the quality assurance, just that their actions that they are performing is slightly different. And maybe when we come towards the more meaty part of the conversation, we'll talk about a bit shift left and other things also. But to start with, it's there in every step. Now we need to realize how much we want it to be there. I think let's get that into position first, and then we go to anything else.
So well said, well said. Yeah. So coming on to my first question of the day. Actually, I already asked, but first question. That how does this agile, or how does agile influence the approach of quality assurance?
Even if I don't talk about agile or agility, right? So agile software development or agile ways of working. Let's first talk about what quality stands for. So whenever we define quality, quality gets defined or rather gets perceived subjectively.
Absolutely.
So for everyone, the definition of quality is slightly different. So we are in India, for example, we have a lot of car brands, both Indian and Western or European car brands and Chinese car brands, which are here nowadays. And the market is full of options. Now, when it comes to quality, depending on how much we can tolerate the standards is what sets the tone for quality. So let's take the color of a vehicle, for example. There are some vehicles or some manufacturers who would give you a warranty on how long the paint is going to last. And if something goes wrong, they will take care of it. There are other manufacturers who would not take that. That itself is quality.
Right.
And then as a consumer, I want to see how much standards I can tolerate. If I can tolerate the paint getting faded in 3 years, then that's my subjective perception of quality. I'm okay with 3 years of paint warranty. I don't mind. At the same time, if I'm a consumer who feels that, hey, this paint needs to be the same high, shiny, glossy, or matte finish that we want till, let's say, 10 years or the lifetime of the vehicle, then that is my tolerance for the quality. So quality becomes very subjective over there. So when I'm thinking from a team's perspective, the team needs to agree on the standards because that's what the consumer is expecting.
Right.
There will be some consumers who will not be happy with the quality. Most likely, they will not even be your target audience, or they will ultimately not become your target audience because of certain reasons. But for your target audience, you need to set a standard and then you need to stick to it.
Hmm.
Now, when it comes to agility or agile ways of working, this standardization and the testing of how much we are adhering to the standards happens much faster in agile ways of working, happens slower if you are not having an agile way of working. So if I can go into production, let's say every week, for example, I will come to know in a week's time if my quality is acceptable to my consumer. If I go in 6 months, I would come to know if it is acceptable after 6 months.
After 6
A year is a year, 2 years is 2 years. So, how sooner we go, the faster we understand the tolerance level for the consumers. And that way we can fix our product. So, that's how quality gets shifted faster or shipped faster to the consumer when it comes to agile ways of working. So the intent does not change. I mean, the intent is still the same, that I am adhering to what my consumer wants. Just that if you're working in an agile way, that feedback comes much faster. And that's what we want. So that if something has to change or something has to pivot, we can do it faster, which also saves cost. So intentionally, that is how it will work, regardless which way of working we are adopting.
Great. Yeah. So you did mention about, faster to market, and then it will actually, improve, or it will give you feedback on your quality also. The
Yeah.
sooner the release, sooner the feedback you will get. The longer
Yes.
the release, the longer it will take long time to come back and say, okay, this could have been a better quality product.
Yeah.
So
And then
that's
if you have to change more things
more things.
because you have shipped a lot more
Yes.
than a lot less. So your context increases. The more your context, the more it takes to change.
Right. So now if I'm thinking about a shorter feedback cycle or feedback loop that I'm talking about, going to customer and customer coming back with. So in that way, my testing plays a crucial role because my loop are smaller. So continuous testing also will be required. So what's your views on those?
I think the first thing that we'll have to still consider is managing our scope.
Right.
Your scope management becomes extremely important, and the scope has to be as small, as independent as possible, so that you can release it much faster. That may or may not have a lot to do in testing practices, but that still has a lot to do in the product development practices. So we speak about MVPs, right? We need a minimum viable product as a lean startup philosophy that we can put out in the real world and get some feedback around it. Now, there's a lot of argument or discussions around that as well. Because you are testing a hypothesis, which is nothing but a short experiment, the small experiment can be done in the best possible way or can be done in a very crude manner.
Right.
Right. So quality itself becomes subjective over there. Do you want to give out a small piece of product which may have bugs but can still give you feedback? Or do you want to give a small piece of product that is as close to as being perfect and then get a feedback? I leave that choice to the product teams. There are times when you have to be extremely cautious about the quality, and there are other times when you can be a little lenient and you will have to do your trade-offs. But once you have chosen it, you still have to go out faster. So that is pure scope management and nothing else. Right? Now, what we can do with regards to testing is we think a lot about requirements management. So when we talk about scope management, we are talking about requirements management. Probably we should think about how tests are used as requirements.
Right.
So test as specification or specification by example, like these are methods that use tests for defining the requirements of the software or of the product that you want. That becomes the first step towards quality assurance. And even though we are like since 2001, we have these agile practices which have been around, not a lot of teams have still adopted these practices. So we usually ask the question, right? When is when is a story done, or when is a product done? When is the MVP done? When can we go live? Whatever it is. And we usually speak about definition of done. Definition of done has its place, and definition of done describes the quality criteria of the entire product. So there will be a number of tests that you have to perform as a part of your definition of done. And if everything passes, then that's the done product that can go out. At the same time, when you come to the very small unit of a story, for example, when is a story done?
Right.
A story is done when all of the tests that are required to fulfill the story are green. And these I'm talking about automated tests, which are there. So now scope management, which is a part of requirements management, becomes a part of test management. Now your job is, or a team's job is, to identify all the tests for which we want to code so that a particular story is done. And the smaller these stories are, the smaller the feature set, and the faster you can release it.
Absolutely. Yes.
So scope management for me is more test management. As long as the team can together identify which tests are to be fulfilled, the lesser the tests, the faster you can go. Having said that, the lesser a test does not mean that go out with bad quality.
Bad quality.
Identify the important tests which are absolutely essential. And with that, you go out in the market. Yeah,
Great.
That's how you go faster.
Yeah, that's so common sense, or very, it's a crystal clear right in front of me. So if my user story is this big and I'm writing tests for those such a huge test cases, or sorry, the user story, so my number of test cases increase, the code will increase, my acceptance criteria, definition of done will increase, the time taken to completion it will increase. So make it small. Make it small, bite it, chew it small piece by piece, and then get it done. So it's a very easy way to take it ahead. So to my viewers, if you're listening, understand this concept.
Easy is relative, I would say. It requires a lot of skills.
Absolutely.
Yes. And even though it sounds simple, there will be some skill development that will be needed to get this done.
Absolutely. You need to go to the core of the product. You need to think like persona based. You have to introduce, because based on that also the test will change. All these factors into the come into the picture. So you have to do a lot of interaction between with the product, among your team members, how they are thinking, how they are looking at the product. All these factors will come into the picture. That's what I can see from this angle.
So at a very high level, acceptance test driven development, behavior driven development, test as specification, as long as you understand these concepts, the practices will help you get there. And then there's a lot more on the product side, as you said, which has to be considered.
Great. Awesome. So can you share any success story where Agile really enhanced the quality assurance?
So I was on one of these products, very busy, I should call, very busy production system. which was responsible for taking a unit of work and then going through these multiple stages until the time it goes into production. And the job of the entire software basically was to take this unit and keep on moving it from one stage to another based on some exit and entry criteria. And if everything works fine, then most likely in, let's say, a week's time, you would have something shipped out. And this is with inside a company. So we are shipping out their product, and the software is supposed to keep on moving this in the forward way. So very simple workflow system. The one of the discussions, one of the evenings, my tech lead and I, so I was managing the product. I had a person who was managing the tech. And then we had a testing team with us who was looking at the overall testing everything from regression to acceptance to user acceptance to smoke tests whenever it was required and regression and stuff like that. And I remember that we were waiting for the release to happen one evening. So it was, I think, 5 p.m. India time, and we were supposed to go live at 8 p.m. India time. And my test lead at that time came and said, we have to run a performance suite on the product. Right. So my first question was that why were we waiting till now for the performance suite anyway? Which we weren't. We were running it in bits and buckets, but there was something from a regression point that was pending. And then we ran the suite, and turns out that the expectation were not matching. Right. And that for quality assurance meant that we have to basically stop or halt everything and then see what can be done, which was a big deal because we had already announced something is going live and literally going live in 3 hours. This is not the time to stop anything. And we basically wanted to understand what is it that would have failed or what will fail if this NFR around performance and load and everything is not being met. Right. Now, at that point of time, there were two perspectives over here. One perspective that we missed something. We missed that non-functional requirements for us performance at that time are extremely important to be considered. And even though we considered it in bits and buckets, we did not consider it in the longer scenario, which also means that there was a silo that we were not aware of. Very recently, Evan Levin, who's the founder of Business Agile Institute, he released a video where he said that we talk about silos have to be like removed, right? Silos cannot be removed. It's difficult to remove silos. The idea is to ensure that we are able to manage it somehow. So silos are going to happen. And it's difficult to identify the silos when you yourself are in the process. So when you're inside the dysfunction, it's very difficult to call out the dysfunction. So yeah, we were in a silo, which we identified later on. And what ultimately happened was that we decided that let's go out. The system will be slow for a while, but eventually we'll start working in the background to bring up everything. But for us to do that, we had to make sure that all of these tests, which were for the performance aspect, have to be automated and have to be given as a part of the definition of done. And only then can everything work out. So yeah, we did make a trade-off and we went out with a substandard system with a promise that everything else will be kept aside and we will just be working on this and making sure that it comes to its standards. But if I have to do it again, I'll make sure that every non-functional requirement is also a part of my automated tests as a part of the tests that have to be completed as a part of the story or the feature, whatever I'm developing. And only then do I call something as done. So from an example standpoint, this was an example where we understood what is required. And we knew how to take action for it. But now every time I work on a particular product, I ensure that even in the acceptance tests, there are NFRs which are captured. You can't skip it.
Right.
And I think that that's something that many teams still forget. And it's obvious to forget it. But we do need to take care of it.
Absolutely. I observed it. I observed, like, I've seen many they even don't ask NFR related questions in the requirement itself. You know, what might be the,
Yeah.
performance criteria, might be the threshold, how many concurrent user might use this mobile application or this API at the same time. How many different system this API is going to use. These questions are missed very easily.
Yeah.
And I can feel it, I can sense it, because it's happening day in, day out in many projects. Even few of the projects that I work, it's happening there.
Yeah. So we are all there.
Yeah.
See, even the example that I have, right? I actually fought with my QA lead at that time, saying that you should have brought this up much earlier.
Much
You
earlier.
can't bring it 3 hours before go live. But at the same time, it's good that he did bring it up, because it's better than skipping it altogether. So I think that management has to be done much better.
Much, yeah. So now we did hear one very, very nice success story.
But I don't call it success, but I
No,
do
it's
call
a,
it.
yeah, we'll
It's a
follow.
learning.
It's a learning.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's a learning. But then, the first thing that we discussed at the start of this podcast, testing comes at the end, and then we hear it from, I'm not saying it, you
Yeah.
people hear it. And then, so how do you see and handle if someone says that, no, no, testing is slowing down
Yeah.
my delivery?
Yeah.
So in Agile project, Agile means I want to deliver faster and testing is slowing it down. So how do you
Yeah.
handle this kind of questions from anyone? I can I know from whom these questions will come, but
Yeah.
anyone.
So I think I can take up two things which are trending. One that has been trending since very long. One is a recent trend that has been picked up. So let's first talk about shift left.
Shift left. Yeah.
So we hear this a lot about, we should shift left testing, or we should shift left everything. Shift left testing, shift left design, shift left production. Go to production first, code later, if you
Yeah,
will.
exactly.
I think that we need to understand what shift left means. And there are very few people who kind of get the essence of what shift left is. So I've started doing this exercise with a number of teams, which helps them identify like what shift left is all about. And one of my colleagues recently pointed out that she does it in a slightly different way, but it still gives the same outcome. So I'll tell you both. So I usually take a like a index card, and I say we'll start with the backlog, even though we can start much earlier. Let's say we start at the backlog, and I basically say that this is a particular requirement. You can call it a feature, story, whatever you want. I have placed it in the backlog. I want to see how this particular card takes the entire path until production. And in the room, you have all of the people who play this different role. So you will have, let's say, a BA, a developer, a tester, designer, a DevOps, whoever is there in your team, you have them in the room. And you just let them be. You tell them this is the product requirement, a small feature, small story. Tell me how you will take it to production. And every time someone picks it up and writes what do they do with that particular index card, which is a feature or a story, I just keep on drawing it on the board. Uh, there will be some steps where this card will circle or create a loop when they are going in the process. For example, the card might pass on from the BA to the developer. It'll come back from the developer to the BA because they will have some scenarios which will not have captured, or they'll have some questions. So that's one. Then it can go to testing. They might find a bug. It comes back to development. It may also happen it goes to the user as a part of UAT and they find a missing requirement, comes back to the BA. It may happen that it goes into production and they realize that there is a design change that has to be done, goes back to designing. It may happen that the package goes to deployment and they realize that something has not been coded or the README file is not there, so it goes back to development. There are so many loops that get created, right? Whenever a loop is created, that loop is waste. In the entire Kanban or lean manufacturing system that we say, anytime you send something back, You create a loop, and that loop is a waste. Now, when we are doing software development, we tend to ignore it because software by nature allows us to do this very seamlessly without a lot of effort. But think about if you are on an assembly line of a manufacturing plant, it's really difficult to pick up this heavy equipment that has been built on a stage and take it to a stage before. If we start thinking of software in that manner, every time we push it back, we are delaying it, we are injecting more problems, we are also creating more silos, we are creating conflicts. There's a lot of things that's happening over there.
More delay.
The exercise is get rid of the loops. And you let the team do that. I don't have to come in and do anything. The team is smart enough to do it. So once you have made that entire diagram from your backlog to production with all the loops which are there, just ask your team, your job is not necessarily now, take a week, take a month, whatever, get rid of the loops. The way to get rid of the loops is a loop happens when a future state sends something back to the past state. If you flip that over, the loop becomes a straight line. And because usually we draw a workflow from the left to right, when you flip something over from the right-hand side to the left-hand side to get rid of the loop, that is called a shift left. Shift left ideally is replacing your steps in the workflow so that those loops go away, your waste process goes away. And over the time, we have realized that shifting the test aspects towards the left reduces these loops almost to a nil.
Yeah.
That's why when we talk about shift left, this is the reason you need to get rid of your loops. And the colleague that I spoke with spoke about, right? So what she does is she basically creates a literal thread, and the thread creates loops. So it's visually much easier for her to show how the loop actually goes away, because if the loop is this way and you want to make it straight, all you have to do is switch the processes. And every time you switch the processes, the future process keeps on going towards the left, which is shift left. Right? So that's one. The second trend that's going on right now is Agile makes you slow. And here's the counter for it. Our definition of slow is wrong.
Absolutely.
I'm talking about waste. A bug getting identified, regardless of which stage it gets identified, it can get identified with the tester, with the developer, in production, by the user during UAT, whatever. But every time a bug is identified, you basically go back in your step, which is a waste, the loop that gets created. Every time you move it to the left and the loop goes away, yes, you are adding more process upfront, because of which certain aspects will become slow. But our biggest problem is not the number of steps in the process. Our biggest problem is when a bug gets identified, searching where the bug is in the system, locating where the problem is takes more time than solving it. That can be done much more efficiently if you have automated tests which have been written before something has gone out. And now if you have to write the tests first and then write the code and then go into production, yes, technically you will be a little slower, but on a grandeur scale, the amount of time you save on a bug even getting leaked into production or a bug getting identified and getting fixed is much, much faster.
Much faster.
So in the economics of software, you might get delayed by a week. But by the time your software is a year or 2 years old, you will be saving months in just maintaining it. So Agile doesn't make you slow. It just makes you sustainable. And it makes you sustainable for a long, long period of time. And I think that aspect is not well understood. So the shift left and the slowishness has to be understood much better.
Great. Yeah. So moving on to our next topic is, how this um, or what are the challenges, some of the challenges that you faced integrating QA into Agile teams?
I don't, again, I wouldn't think of integrating QA as a person, firstly.
Yeah. No, it's a overall quality assurance.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That is not very challenging, actually.
Hmm.
What is challenging at times for me is to convince the sponsor, usually, that there is a need for specialty, and that specialty comes at a cost, and that's a cost worth investing in. So you should have someone. So we have the test pyramid, and the test pyramid has different levels of testing that we would perform. There will be a lot more automated unit tests, a little lesser of integration API and other tests, and then much lesser functional tests. That does not mean that the much lesser functional tests are not important at all. They're still important. They're just lesser in number. That's also one of the reasons why a lot of agile teams have less number of testers compared to developers, or the programmers, as we call them. So even though I'm doing test first development and the programmers are going to write the tests before they write the code, which makes it a much better process from a development and economic standpoint, there will still be a necessity of the other layers in the test pyramid to be fulfilled, which requires some specialty to be brought in. Now, it's not to say that if you don't have a quality assurance person on the team, the developers can't write that. They can. No one's going to stop them from doing it either. Bringing in a specialist brings in some level of credibility, some authority on that. Yeah. And that's what we want to bring in. So I have to a number of times explain to my sponsors why you require a specialist on the team. And there are cultural reasons why this happens. For example, if I'm working with someone from Germany, and Germany is known for quality, with, let's say, their automobile, they're known for their German engineering. The engineers own up to the quality. And every single step in the process inbuilds the quality. The same would be with Japan, for example, and everything would be inbuilt. Software being slightly different, or maybe the amount of skill set distribution with regards to time being different, we do have people who specialize in quality assurance, and they bring in a certain level of specialty that and expertise that we require. My biggest pet peeve or challenge has usually been to convince the sponsor that you need them. And there's usually a question as why, and that goes into a much longer discussion. At times it is contextual also. There are some teams who don't need it. Many teams would basically work perfectly fine without it. But if you do need it and your context requires it, you should have a specialist, and that always helps. But yeah, quality assurance, I don't think anyone says no to it, so that's not a challenge. But bringing in a specialist might be a challenge.
Yeah, that's true. Pretty much true. Yeah. And then in one of the discussion we did discussed about having an interaction with BA, or having interaction with developer, or even a UAT or user. So collaboration is very essential. Very like it's a heart of agile practices.
Yeah.
So how do you ensure that the collaboration remains very, very effective in agile teams, or improves more quality?
Yeah. So practices do help. I think Jim Highsmith also recently made a statement which kind of is again a kind of trending, that Agile doesn't need processes, it needs practices. I think of processes as made up of practices. You won't have a good process until you have a good practice or a good set of practices. The collaboration bit, usually, there are certain practices that have helped me quite a lot. So we speak about three amigos: acceptance test-driven development, behavior-driven development, test as specifications. The simplest way I have usually visualized is you have a business person who carries the domain knowledge, understands what is expected, understands the job that has to be done, the goal that has to be achieved. Then there is a quality assurance person who is more coming from how do I ensure that this is working as expected? What if I do something different? Will it break? Should I think of security? Should I think of how it integrates? Should I think of performance? All of the NFRs that we speak about. And then there's a developer who would want to understand how can this be built in the simplest of ways? What are those scenarios that I need to consider? And those scenarios have to perform in a certain way or give certain results. So if you have the practice of three amigos and acceptance test-driven development with BDD and Gherkin and other things, no, I'm using a lot of jargon, but if you just go and search this, you will get all of the knowledge that you require. That is collaboration enough, at least to begin with. Once you get started with this, you will figure out your own ways to collaborate better. This is like the bare minimum. If you do this, your collaboration is already a level up. Like a lot of us work in Scrum, right? And we speak about backlog refinement. And even though backlog refinement is not a meeting, a lot of us would think about that backlog refinement meeting has to happen. And that meeting requires people to be there and then discuss what has to be built so that everyone has the same understanding. The question is, how do you guarantee everyone has the same understanding? An easy way to understand everything is if you all agree to the same tests that have to pass. Which means that if you are in the same room and having your three amigos representation in that room, you just have to identify the tests that have to pass. And that is collaboration enough, that is refinement enough. Sure, you can do a lot more things in refinement. You can think about screen designs. You can think about what the user is expecting in, let's say, outside the system and other things. But the bare minimum, if you want to do refinement, just do three amigos and identify your tests as specifications, and that's good enough. And that, even if you do like 15, 20 minutes a day in your entire iteration or sprint, it wouldn't take more than 10% of your time.
Absolutely.
And that 10% is good as an investment to just get that clarity. That will be collaboration enough.
Well said. Absolutely. Yeah, spot on. Yeah. So coming on to our last question. A lot of people aspiring, to become quality assurance specialists or agile experts like me. I am moving into, more serious agile roles now. What advice you will give? How we can, improve our skills? How can I improve our collaboration skills?
Yeah.
Maybe books to read or whatever word of wisdom that you have for us.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of books which are already there, so I wouldn't go to that aspect. The way I've started visualizing it in the recent past is when you're on a team, and if you call yourself an agile team, there are two things that are extremely essential. One is that you need to be fast. Now, fast does not mean that you need to do things faster. If you have to write a code and if your typing speed is 40, it does not mean I'm asking you to make it 60. When I say fast, you need to figure out what are the things in your process which are waste and you can get rid of it so that you reach your goal faster. So one of the things about continuous improvement that we speak about is, regardless of what your role is, you need to keep on identifying these steps in your process where either you can introduce a new practice and make it faster or get rid of it because it's just making you slower. So if it's an agile team, it needs to be fast. Anyone who says that Agile does not mean fast, I can have a debate about it. That's perfectly fine. Right. The second thing that you essentially need to have when it comes to any Agile roles is, unless you are taking your team one step ahead towards the goal, you're not adding any value. So not regarded to quality assurance per se, but let's say an argument that I've had with business analysts, because I have been a business analyst for a very long time, is the profession of business analysis particularly started very much technical. There used to be technical analysis or systems analysis. And even if I look at just the simple SDLC model, right? A lot of us dislike waterfall. Having said that, Vincent Royce, in his paper, if you actually go and read through the paper, he never said that waterfall is the right way to work. He actually said it's not the right way to work. And then he mentioned a few things, 5 things particularly, that you should do in order to get rid of the risks of waterfall. But the very first diagram that he has on that paper, and I like that quite a lot, is development per se is a 2-step process. You require analysis, and analysis simply means you need to understand the problem. If you have understood the problem, you can code for it, which is getting the solution. You remove all the other steps. And if you do only these 2 steps, you will still have a working software. Now, when it comes to a lot of specialty that we bring in, specialty keeps on splitting these steps more and more. And in a manufacturing world, this would usually help, because the smaller your process and the more the slack time on a machine, the better it is, because your queues reduce. If your queues reduce, your work in progress happens much faster and you go faster to production. When it comes to software, you need to question yourself if reducing that size is actually adding any value. So let's say if you divide the role of business analysis into functional analysis and technical analysis, and then the tech analysis is not being done by the functional BA, and the question is, who does it? In the absence of a specialist, the developer does it, or the programmer does it, or the tester does it. And if functional analysis is what you have to perform, which, let's say, if you have a product owner on your team who's already performed it, then what's the value that you're adding? So we need to question ourselves as individuals when we are in an agile team and the specialty that we are delivering, is it taking us a step towards the goal? If it's not taking a step towards the goal, we have 2 choices. Either we start doing things that takes us towards the goal, or we just exit the system.
Right.
And both of those will make the team more agile. And the second option that I say, exit the system, that won't go very well with a lot of people. If we look at the system whole some way, and if exit is how it happens, then we should think about it. That does not mean that we are out of a job. That simply means that we need to find the place where it is much more important for us to be in. So I think those will be the 2 things. It needs to be fast. So find all the waste and get rid of it. And you need to ensure that you're taking your team a step towards the goal. Otherwise, either change or leave, one of the 2.
Great. It was wonderful discussion, Vishal. Thanks
Yes.
for joining us. And to my audience, if you enjoy our discussion, please like the video, please share with your friends, and keep visiting. And I'll provide all the contact details, LinkedIn profile and this website on my video, and it's really easily approachable on LinkedIn. So send out the questions if you want to have any questions further. So thanks a lot, Vishal, once again. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you, folks.